Okay, good morning. We are on Bava Metzia 19b, towards the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom, Tana Rabbana. Okay, Tana Rabbana, Masa Shovar. The last thing in the Mishnah was if you find a receipt. This is a receipt for the woman writes for her husband when he pays the ketubah, meaning he's paid his debt. So you find this, but you don't know who lost it. When the woman admits that the ketubah was paid, Yachzir Labal, give it back to the husband. But if she doesn't confirm that, well, Yachzir don't give it back to anybody because you don't know if the ketubah if this document was signed, but the money hasn't been paid yet, so you can't come down either way. So the implication of the Mishnah is that, it states directly that if the woman admits it, then give it back to the husband. So we're going to ask the same question as yesterday. Maybe it's dated wrong. Maybe there's an interim period of the azla between the dating and the giving of the receipt, meaning the dating of the receipt and the paying of the ketubah. And she can sell the ketubah to somebody else for tovas hanaz, like just for a token price, because if the divorce doesn't take place, then there's nothing for her to sell, right? So she's selling a possible future interest. Sells for a small net. So if the divorce takes place, so the husband can show this receipt that was written in Nisan, but the divorce didn't actually happen until Tishrei. And then so the sale of Tovasana was a valid sale. She's selling a future interest, but the husband will make it look like it wasn't a future interest, like it wasn't possible to sell, it wasn't hers anymore. Amarava, Shmamina, Isa, Lida Shmuel. We can prove Shmuel's opinion from this. Yamar Shmuel, what does Shmuel say? If you sell an IOU, and then the debt then you forgive the debt. So I'm the lender. I have a document that proves the loan. I sell that loan, or the rights to collect that loan, to somebody else, and then I forgive the debt. So then the right to collect the loan would be worthless. So Shmuel says that works, right? You've sold the note, but you haven't sold the actual debt. You could still forgive the debt. Even the estate of the lender can forgive the debt. Okay, so why don't we treat the ketubah? So we're saying that works according to Shmuel, because we're saying that there's no concern for cheating because like a debt, the ketubah can be she can forgive the debt of the ketubah, right? She has the option to say, you know what, I don't need my ketubah. You don't have to pay it, and then so you don't have to defraud the buyer. You can do it legally.
What's the advantage? What's the advantage to her?
What is the advantage to her? Well, what's the advantage in the case of the loan?
Yeah, what's the advantage? Why would he do that?
Well, it seems kind of unethical, right? But you could invent any kind of motivation. And as is often the case, what the Gemara is really doing is kind of pushing against the limits of these cases to determine the nature of the opinions and the nature of the law, right? So you can invent a case that is unlikely, but you want to by determining the disposition of the case, you understand a little better the principles involved. So in other words, I don't know. But
that's always the case. The Gemara often does that. But what would be the advantage to someone to sell the?
You want to screw somebody you want to screw over.
But she loses the value of her ketubah in this case. I mean,
well, she's already sold it. Like the only question is, does the buyer of her ketubah get it or not? Right? She's not going to get it either way. Either she's entitled to it, but she's already sold it, or she's not entitled to it, or she gives up her entitlement to it. Right?
Yeah, but
So either way, she's not getting it. So it's just a question of, well, or maybe, maybe she's feels like she owes her husband something and doesn't want him to have to pay, her ex-husband. I don't know.
That's hard to
Abaya,
understand that, because if her ketubah is worth $1 million, why would she? I mean, she sells it for 20 cents. I mean, what does she gain for that? I don't know. Just hard to.
well, yeah. So what you gained from it is you weren't expecting to get divorced. So that's why you would sell it for a small amount, because it's only a possible future value. Maybe it was some part of some other business transaction, like maybe it was a sweetener for some other business transaction that you were negotiating, and you had to throw in something to get it done, and you figure this is not going to cost me much, and it's of some value, some possible value to the buyer. I don't know. We could make up cases.
I don't know.
Abaya Amar, Abaya says this is not a good validation of Shmuel's opinion, because because the brisa that says you can return the receipt could be talking about a case where she still has the ketubah document itself. So if she has the ketubah itself, we know that she hasn't sold it, right? Because if you would have sold it, you would have had to give up that document. So therefore, if that's the case, if she still has the ketubah, if she demonstrates that she still has the ketubah, then we can give the receipt back to her ex-husband, because we know that there's no third party involved. Varava Amar, but why does Rava not want to determine that that's the case we're talking about here? He says, okay, you know what? She has a ketubah, but maybe that's not the maybe there's two ketubah documents. Maybe, I'm not sure what the circumstances would be, but maybe like one supersedes the other, right? So maybe one's an old ketubah, but there's a more recent ketubah.
She lost one, and then she found
Lost one,
it was rewritten,
okay.
and then she
Good,
found
good.
the old one.
Good. That could be, yeah. Okay. So we might have there might be two ketubas to consider. So there could still be fraud, because one of them is has been superseded by Amar. Abai says, no, that doesn't, we don't have to worry about that. Chada, for one thing, we don't generally worry about that. It's an unlikely case. And more, Shovar Bismano Tarif. The receipt, Bismano Tarif, right? It's only valid from the date written on the receipt and forward. Okay, so a receipt written in Nissan is valid even if you didn't pay her then, right? Because the receipt takes effect, as we saw yesterday. There are certain things that, according to different opinions, but there are certain things that not different opinions, but certain cases, you can specify that a lien takes effect today, even if you're not making the loan until later. That's the case for a shovar in any case, right? That once you put a date on it, the receipt takes effect immediately. So the receipt written in Nissan is valid even if the money didn't get paid until later. Abai Tame, and this is consistent with Abai Diamar, that also Abai's opinion is that this is definitely a schus, right? For the woman to get the money in the ketubah. So Abai holds that once witnesses have signed the document, it's as if the money has been acquired already, right? That is then it's already acquired by the woman, and so there's no difference between, like, even if the money is actually handed over later, but the legal ramifications of the money transfer already took place.
So he guarantees the money
Yeah,
Oh, he
yeah,
hasn't given it to, he guarantees it. It will be paid.
yes, that's a good way to put
It's
it.
a
Yeah.
guarantee. And if he dies in between,
If he died, then
Yorshim.
the estate
Yeah.
owes it. Yeah. Okay, next mission. Matzah igros shum. If you find translated with letters of the sign. I mean, if the court confiscates this is in the news today, if a property is confiscated by the court to pay a debt or whatever, then they write a document about it. So if you find one of these, the igros mazon, a letter that so that a father has agreed to provide mazonos, to provide support to a stepdaughter. So if he puts himself on the hook, so technically, if you marry a woman and she has a minor daughter, you're not responsible for her upkeep, but you can take it on. Shari Chalitzo Mayanin, a document that validates a chalitza. Right, chalitza is where you reject the yuvama, or miyun, which is refusing a marriage that a minor has been entered into. If a minor is given into marriage by a minor who has no father, who's an orphan, but her mother or her brothers give her into marriage as a minor, then when she reaches the age of majority, she can refuse the marriage. She can get out of it because it was only rabbinic to begin with. Usheri Berurin, a document which okay, this the Gemara will deal with, so we'll leave it till later. Any court action, any document that certifies action was taken by the court, harays the answer. You can give it back to yeah, there's no two parties here. You can give it back to the person involved. All the stuff that we've just dealt with over the past few days of what if, the date of the signing and the handing over of the money or whatever, that doesn't apply here because this is certifying a court action. Like once the court certifies that, yes, we have done this, it's already done. So there's no possibility for discrepancy in dates. Okay. Matzah b'chafisa obed luskama. If you find a document in some kind of a container, a binder or tachrich shel shtaros, or if you found a roll of documents like a what's the word, a whatever collection of documents all attached to each other, or aguda shel shtaros, or a bundle, hooray zeyachzir, that you should return. Because these are considered simanim, right? This is a way to identify them. If someone says, yes, I lost this document and it was tied with a red string or something like that, then that's a siman and you should return it because that's proof enough that is the person who lost it. What do we mean by a bundle of documents? At least three together. Yachzir Lalova. What if you find a document that one person borrowed from from three different people in one document, Yachzir Lalova, that you can return to the borrower because that must one second. Sorry, not one document. There's three documents found together that one person borrowed from all three. Like, how else could they have gotten together? Why? How else would they be found together? It was lost by the borrower because he's the one party that's common to all three documents. So then definitely give it back to the borrower. But if you have the other way around, three documents of three people who borrowed from one, then Yasser Lamalva. So again, why would the only way these documents would be found together is if they were lost by the one guy who's common to all of them, which is in this case the lender. Masa Sharbein Shtarosa. Let's say you've got your own filing cabinet and you're looking through it and you found one that doesn't belong to you. And you don't know, what's the story here. Um, so, sorry, this is your document, but you don't remember if it's been executed or not. Don't act on it. Put it aside. Let it until you get some resolution. Don't give it to the borrower or the lender. If there are receipts in your documents, and you don't remember if the receipt was executed or not, then Yasamasha Basimpanas, that you can rely on. You wouldn't have a receipt unless it had been executed already. Okay. Okay, so now the Gemara first addresses the thing we left open. My Shari Berurin. What are these Berurin documents? Hachatir Gamu here, meaning in Bavel, they explained Shtare Ta'anasa. These are documents that record the arguments of people litigating in court. So in other words, some kind of supporting document to your court to a court case. So again, there's no date discrepancy issue. So give it back to the person who's named it. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Zeb, and he was, by the way, from Eretz Yisrael, so he's not. The first explanation was how they used this term in Babylonia. This is the way they used it in Eretz Yisrael. Zeb bar lo echad, Zer bar lo echad. These are the documents in which you choose judges for a case. So as is well known, if two people have a dispute and they want to take it to a court, then each one chooses a judge and those two judges choose a third one. So when you document that, that's what we're talking about here. That's a shtar berurin. So anyway, the Mishnah said, all of these things or any other court action, that you can give it back to the named person. There was a case where a divorce was found in Rav Huna's court. In the get, it's always written just like in the Ksuba where it took place, and it said on it in Shvire, which is a town on the river Rachis. So Amar Rav Huna said, how do I know it's Shvira? This is maybe there's another town. Like someone's identifying it by saying that, I had a get that was written about in Shviri. Maybe there's another Shviri. Amalei Rechisa L'Ravas, Rechisa said, okay, go look into this. Rav Huna is going to come and ask you later, so you better be prepared. So Rabba went, he looked it up, and he found this Mishnah. Any court action, you can give it back. In other words, once a court document has been issued, then you can trust what's written in it. So don't go looking for ways to undermine the document by saying, oh, maybe there's some other town called Shvire. So he wanted to prove from this Mishnah. Rav Amar said, what are you mixing up these two things? You're mixing up a question about Mamanos, about returning lost loan documents. You're mixing it up with get documents, which is not a loan, not primarily a loan, but it's primarily a question of marital, of Isur v'Heter, of who can marry whom. Amalei, so he answered, Trada, like, what are you, crazy? Shtari Chalitza Main, it's not. Our Mishnah is always also talking, like, our Mishnah is not only talking about monetary things, it also mentions Chalitza, Miyun, these are also things having to do with Isurim. So certainly it's a good proof for an issue regarding a get. Hakar Rav. So what happens is the beam, the main supporting beam of the base medrash cracked. Mar mishum latai didi paka. One said, so clearly, they interpreted this as a statement by God or something of that nature. protesting what was said. So one says, Rav Amram says, because Rabba insulted me, he called me a crazy person, so that's why it's split. And the other says it was like, no, it was split because Rav Amram like disagreed with me, right? Like he asked a stupid question to embarrass me. Okay, we're not going to resolve who was right there. But probably I guess the Gemara is commenting that there's a way to conduct an argument, right? Don't publicly, challenge somebody, and don't call somebody a lunatic. Okay, an argument. So the Mishnah says if you find a document that's in a particular kind of case, my chafisa, what are these words? Chafisa and luskuma. Amarava barachana, chemes katana, like a kind of a wineskin kind of thing. You find documents stuffed into a wineskin. Might luskuma. What is the other thing? It's luskuma. Amarava Shmuel tlika desave. It's old people's kind of catch-all boxes. So if you have if your memory is failing and you keep your important documents in one drawer, that's what we're talking about as well. So this is something more portable than the drawer because it was found outside, but some kind of a box where you keep your important stuff, which is portable. So that's what he calls it, luskama. So if you can identify the container, then that is a good indication that the documents are yours. Okay, then we said tachrich shel shtaros, a roll of documents, or aguda, or a bundle of documents. San Rabbanan. Kamu tachrich shel shtaros. How many is a roll? Shlosha kruchim zebazeh, 3 rolled together. How many aguda shel shtaros? What's a bundle? Shlosha kshurim zebazeh, 2 tied up together. Okay, so again, these are the same rule, just a different style of bundling them together, rolled up or tied up into a bundle. So we can deduce from this Mishnah, Kesher Siman, that the knot, that the way you tie something should be considered a good siman, a good identifying characteristic. So what does this mean? We weren't talking about a knot, but apparently the Gemara figures that it's common to have documents bundled together, like file folders, right? If you say, oh, my documents were in the file folder, like that's not a siman, that can't be the siman because everybody puts documents in the file folder. But if it's the particular way that you wrapped up the file folder, that you tied it with a particular kind of knot, that must be what the Mishnah means by a good, or the Brisa means by a good siman. But the Gemara says maybe not. Hatani Rabbi Chia, Shlosha Kruchin Zebazeh, 3 rolled together is also a good siman. So there's no knot there at all. So maybe it is just the fact that they're packaged together. Gemara says, well, wait a minute. So if that's the case, like, what do you have 2 cases for? If you mean to say that 3 documents packaged together in any way, then what do you need to have 2 demonstrations of it? So it must be that the file folder is a common way to put them together. A roll is not a common way. So if you say they were rolled up together, then that's a good siman. If you say they were in a file folder tied with a particular knot, would be the other valid siman. So tachlich kol chad v'chad barosha dechavre. So this is what I was saying, that rolling them together means that they're rolled up together, right? They're end to end, and you make one roll up. A bundle is deramu adade. They're one on top of each other, kruchas, and they're tied together. Okay, my machlis. Now, how do you go about trying to find the someone who can identify it, right? Like, how much do you give away? So minyan, you could say how many documents, right? So you could say I found 10 documents, come and prove they're yours. So Ma'ir Tlasa. So why does the Mishnah talk about, likewise is saying what's a minimum is 3 afilu train name? So if you say I found 2 documents together, like, why would it make any sense to have a minimum number if this is how you're advertising what you found? So it must be like Ravina said. Tiva machris, you say like what the type of things you found. So as Ravina said in another case, you say, I found coins. Now you come tell me how many coins you lost. You say, I found documents. You don't say anything else specific about them. You come and say, you can come and prove it by saying they were tied with a square knot or they were rolled up together. Okay. From Shimon Gamliel Omer, the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said in the Mishnah, Echad Halav Mishnah, Shayasir Lava. One, if you have three documents with a common borrower, give it back to the borrower.
They're from three
Yeah, so three loan documents.
From
A
three
borrowed
separate
from B,
individuals.
Yeah, A borrowed from B, A borrowed from C, A borrowed from D. Three separate documents, and they were found together. So who must they belong to? The common person in them is the borrower, A. And the Gemara explains the Sakadatu, the Malvininu, if you think they belong to B or C or D, what are they all doing together? So the fact that they're found together is a good indication that they were lost by the borrower. So the Gemara says, Dilma
The common is the lender, isn't it? The lender is the common, the lover from
the Mishnah deals with both cases, right? The one case where the common person is the borrower, and one case where the common person is the lender. Whoever the common person is, that's who's entitled to get the documents returned to them.
Well, in this case, Echad Alova.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say lender? Yeah, the borrower. You're correct. Thank you.
No, the lender. This one is the lender is the right. Oh, I'm sorry. The borrower.
No. Bava.
Right. This is the.
Yeah. So when it says okay, so the reason is that the only reason they would be together is because they were lost by the person who's common to all three documents. The question, maybe not. Maybe they were going to get certified, right? So they were like. There was somebody whose job it is to collect documents and take them to get certified. So maybe that's why they're together. Maybe they weren't lost by the lender, but the borrowers went to a service. I'm sorry. Maybe it doesn't belong to the borrower, but the lenders all went to a service and said each one of them separately said, get these documents certified. This agent bundles them together and is on his way, and he loses it. So maybe there is a reasonable explanation how they could belong to the lenders still. So Gemara says to Makaime, okay, we must be talking about a case where that wasn't a possibility because they've already been certified. So Dilma Miyada de Safra Nafil. Maybe maybe the guy was on his way back from having them certified, right? So it's still a possibility that there's that they belong to the lenders and they're still found together. No, there wouldn't be the Gemara discounts that possibility. You wouldn't have left. I mean, it actually doesn't deal with the case that I mentioned. It says maybe the scribe lost them, the scribe who's certifying them. So no, you wouldn't leave it with the scribe. You'd hang around until the work was done. But that leaves open the possibility, as I said, if you gave them to an agent, or if there was some agent whose job it was to do this for different people, he could have lost it even after he was certified. The Gemara doesn't discuss that. Now the other case, the mirror case, three people borrowed from one person, so the common person is the lender. Yes, give them back to the lender. If they belong to the borrowers, what are they doing together? So Gemara says, maybe the borrowers were each taking them to the sofer to have the documents written out, and the sofer lost them. So the Gemara says, they suffer. We're talking about three different handwritings, right? They were clearly written by three different sofrim, so that's not a possibility. Obviously, now we're going to say the same thing. Maybe they were going to have the documents certified, and might still belong to the borrowers. Gemara says, who wants to certify a document if you're borrowing? Malva Makaim Shari. It's the borrower doesn't have any interest in getting the document certified. It's because if the document is challenged, then he doesn't have to pay. he doesn't have to pay it back. It's the lender who needs to get it certified. Borrower wouldn't do that. So that's not a valid question. Okay. Next thing in the Mishnah, Yesh Bahem Simponos. If there are receipts in your documents, you should rely on them. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba bar Rav. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, a receipt that you find in the papers of the lender, of the lender. Alpha P Shekasu Biksaviado, even if it's written in his own handwriting, it's it's some kind of a trick. In other words, he's just playing with you, right? Like nobody writes a receipt and keeps it, right? That you're only, I'm not sure, why that would make sense to anybody to do that, but a receipt can only be relied upon if it is in the hand of the borrower, proving that he has repaid the loan. He's only kind of playing with the borrower. Apostle, it's not considered valid. Like maybe I wrote the receipt in anticipation of getting the money, and but it never happened. Okay, so maybe that's why it's in my file cabinet. So it's only valid if it's held by the borrower. And lomi by chassid b'ksaviat sofer. Not and you wouldn't say this only if it's written by a scribe. You might say that, this traveling scribe was passing through here. I know I'm going to need this receipt next week when the guy's supposed to pay me. So let the sofer write the receipt now, and I'll give it later. So not only that is an indication that is not a full indication that that the receipt happened. Even if it's in your own handwriting, it's still a good savar, because you might be saying, maybe the guy is going to come and pay me back right before candlelighting time on Shabbos, right? And I won't have time to go find paper and pen and write it out and everything. I'll have the receipt ready so that if he comes right before Shabbos, I'll give him the receipt right away. But it hasn't happened yet. That's why it's in my filing cabinet. And so and why would I want to do that? Because he's going to pay me. He'll demand a receipt. He says, I'll pay you. I have the money right now. It's almost Shabbos. Give me a receipt. I'll give you the money. We'll be done. Right. And you don't have time before Shabbos. So you want to have the receipt ready so that you can accept the money when he offers it. So I'll go and write it out. So if it does happen, whenever he brings in money, I'll have the receipt ready to give to him. So the fact that you have a receipt doesn't necessarily prove that the money was returned to you. Again, it's only a proof if it is in the hand of the borrower. So it's not. So the Gemara challenges us from another Mishnah. So this is our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah contradicts Rav Yirmiyah. Rav Yirmiyah has this whole thing that a receipt is always valid. Our Mishnah seems to indicate that the receipt is always valid. Rav Yirmiyah says no, it's only valid in the hands of the borrower. So what's Rav Yirmiyah's source? Kid Rav Safra. We'll say that he's based on Rav Safra. Shenimsa ben shtaros kruin. The Mishnah is talking about a case where the receipt is found in the invalid documents filing cabinet. Like maybe you keep your torn document somewhere and you found it there. So maybe we assume that it's not a valid document, even though this one isn't torn. Hachaname, so we can say that our Mishnah is, when does our Mishnah say that you can always give it back? When the lender finds this receipt in his ripped, torn documents filing cabinet, which would indicate that I'm not sure how this works, but it's indicated that you'd thrown this away and the debt had been paid. In other words, if the debt was still unpaid, you wouldn't put your receipt with the torn documents, like in the recycle pile. Like if the theory is, like Rabbi Yirmiyah said, that you're holding this document against the day that the guy shows up with the money, and then you'll give him the receipt, then what would you be doing? Why would it be in your recycle bin, right? So if the receipt is found in your recycle bin, we can assume that it's like this is an old document, the receipt's been done, and you're throwing it away.
He paid it. It's like any other document. It was torn. He just forgot to tear it.
Yeah, exactly. Right, Tashma. So let's try and figure out, try and prove one way or the other about Rav Yirmiyah. If you find among your documents, Shar Shal Yosef ben Shimon Perua, that the debt of Yosef ben Shimon was paid. And there's two people named Yosef ben Shimon. So Shtar Shneim Peruin, then they can both use this document as evidence that that their loan was paid. So this indicates that we do trust the document that you find in your filing cabinet. So again, how come Rabbi Yirmiyah qualifies that? Could you have Rav Safra? So the answer is like Rav Safra. Shanim Sabein Shtar Screwing. Same answer as before. We're talking about when it was in the recycle bin. Achaname Shanim Sabein Shtar Screwing. Tashma. Let's bring another proof. Shvua Shalo Pakadnu Shalo Pakadnu Abba. V'Shalo Amar Lanu Abba. V'Shalo Matzanu Ben Sharosu Shal Abba Shashar Zaparua. So the orphans want to collect money from other orphans, right? Two estates trying to collect from the other. So the one that's claiming the money has to take a shvua that that our father didn't tell us anything about this, didn't mention it. We haven't found any documents that it's paid, right? We haven't found any receipts. So why are they taking a shvua that they haven't found any receipts? Does this mean that if they found a receipt, we would believe the receipt, right? So then how come Rabbi Yirmiyah says qualifies that? Amar Safra, Shanim Zabein Shtar Screwing. We're going to give the same answer. We're talking about we haven't found a receipt in the recycle bin, okay, which is a little bit of a stretch, but it is a way to negate the proof from the potential proof from this Mishnah. Tashma. Try
So
one
you're
more time.
making a shavua on something that didn't happen. A negative. How do you prove a negative?
Well, you're saying we didn't find a receipt. You're not saying the shvua is not worded that there is no receipt. Is that we've been through our father's papers and we didn't find any such receipt, right? It's like in discovery, you have to give over like all the documents and emails and everything that you have. You can't cover it up. That's what they're swearing. But this is that we've done a full accounting and we have no record of payment. I mean, it's still possible that it was paid and there's no evidence of it, but that's not what they're contending. That's not what they're swearing to. Tashma, or I'm going to try again. Simpon sheyesh avedim. Brisa says you have a receipt with witnesses. Yishkaim b'choslav. Then the witnesses, you find out if the witnesses, what actually happened. You interview the witnesses and rule that way. Again, doesn't that contradict Rabbi Yirmiyah? It seems like the receipt is valid. But where it says Ema, what you have to read this as Yiskayim Mechosmav. This is how you certify it. The Shailin and Lahulasade, you ask the witnesses, was it paid or not paid? Okay, the assumption is that if there's witnesses on a loan document, you want those witnesses to witness the return of the money as well. So in that case, if you can do that, then if the witnesses say that they witnessed the repayment, then obviously the receipt can be valid. And if they say we never witnessed it, then you would still say it's not up. One more time, Tashma. Simple sheish levadim, a receipt with witnesses kosher. This brisa says it is valid, right? Again, contradicts Rav Yirmiyah. So the answer is my edim. What do you mean a receipt with witnesses? Edei they are witnesses that the signatures are valid. So it's not the witnesses who actually signed, it's witnesses that testify about, are these actually the witnesses of the who said who are written here? Is this really their signature? So if that's the kind of certification of a receipt that's taking place, then yes, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba would agree that this is a valid receipt, but otherwise not. This also makes sense to say, because the end of the bride says V'shein Lavein impossible. If it has no witnesses, it's invalid. So of course, Ma'in Lavein. What do you mean? What kind of a document has no witnesses? What's the point of such a document? It's just a piece of paper which I wrote on. It has to have witnesses. So by saying that there could be a document with no witnesses, like if you say there's no witnesses on the document at all, like obviously that's not a valid document. What we're talking about is certifying witnesses that certify that these are the signatures. And so therefore the Brisa says that if it's not certified by witnesses, then it's not valid. That Rabbi Yirmiyah can understand that it's not valid. Gufa. We said just above, a receipt with witnesses should be certified by the people, the witnesses who signed it. And if there's no witnesses on it, and it's found in the hands of a third party, or it what's that? The Gemara is going to explain what this is. Sorry. Then kasha. These documents are valid. What do these mean? If it comes from a third party, because the fact that there is a third party means that the lender kind of gives some value to the statement of by having a third party involved. You're implicitly saying that you trust the third party and you'll believe him.
So he's like a witness in a sense.
Yeah,
not really,
yeah,
but he's
right.
like a witness.
Right. So okay. The Yosemite tells Lachar Chitim Shars means the receipt is on the document itself, right? So if the receipt is on the loan document, like you've written a loan document, it's been signed, and then at the bottom you write this loan has been paid. D love the Perea, if the loan weren't paid, lo have a merely sorry. Yeah, sure. We invented scenarios where somebody might have written a receipt for future use, but nobody would do that on the document itself, on the loan document, because then you wouldn't be able to use the loan document as a proof ever. So nobody would do that. So if it's written, unless it actually happened. So if that's the case, then we say it actually happened. And with that, we finish the second parak. And David will pick up tomorrow, beginning the first parak. David will pick up tomorrow with the beginning of the second parak.
What's the situation in the last case again? That the receipt was?
If you have a loan document, right? I owe you $100, signed me, and then after that, it's written this loan has been paid. Signed you. So you would never have written, like you may have written a practice receipt or a receipt for future use on a separate piece of paper, right? But you would never do that on the loan document itself, because then then that would only be done if it really happened. Nobody would write that as a possible future use on the loan document itself, because it's obvious that that invalidates releases the obligation of the loan.
So the Gemara says kasher, though, that it would be kasher, right?
Yeah, release the receipt. Because you wouldn't have done that unless you really received the money. That's a repayment. Okay, have a good day.
Have a good day.